This episode of the Home Pros Radio Show podcast is brought to you by HomeBinder, the premier home management app. Receive home maintenance reminders, organize your home's inventory, manage your home improvement projects, and more. Stay tuned to get a free upgrade code for HomeBinder worth over $200.
The Home Pros Radio Show.
I'm Tommy Donovan with RIC Home Inspections, and this is the Home Pros Radio Show podcast. The summer season is a time when homeowners tend to turn their focus on projects related to the exterior of the home. Roof replacement, siding repairs, and larger landscaping jobs are examples of some of the major projects that we tend to tackle this time of year. The warmer summer weather also brings along the volatility of severe weather like thunderstorms that bring flash flooding, high winds, and hail that can spoil our efforts to keep our homes in ideal condition. This prompts us to ask ourselves whether we have the proper insurance coverage that can help us bounce back from this type of damage, and when it occurs, are we prepared to do what's needed to make our recovery efforts as smooth as possible? Tim Briles, president of the Briles Company Insurance, is an expert in this field, and he joined us on the show to help answer these questions as we aim to help you protect your home from these catastrophic acts of nature. We want to go ahead and bring in Tim Briles with the Briles Company Insurance. Good.
Glad to be here.
What are some of the things we need to think about as the stormy seasons are coming?
It's that time of year, and I mean, we see insurance claims spike up quite a bit. Really, from that perspective, just kind of, I think people need to be well versed on what is covered, what's not covered under their homeowners, and make sure too that they're taking the right steps. If they have a claim, the do's and don'ts of that claim system, and how they can kind of make that process go seamlessly. I figured I'd just share a few insights. Always get people thinking a little bit, maybe to do a recheck on their policies and go from there. But, you know, that the storm season can bring a variety of events that affect a home, from hail, wind, even fire, tree strikes, trees down on properties, flooding, and along with flooding, we sometimes commonly see, issues with drain lines backing up, especially sub pumps with water inundation into crawl spaces that maybe have material in there, or, more commonly finished basements. And so, most homeowners policies pretty much cover most of these common perils, but there are differences. So, homeowners need to be careful about what homeowners product they're in. And so I would say, from our perspective, we, as an insurance agent, we're weary when we look at a homeowner. Don't always focus on price, focus on the product that you get. There's two primary homeowners products that are out there on the market, and they can make a difference come claim time. So depending on what product you're in, you want to just do a quick review, and we typically recommend getting into what we call the Homeowners 5 form, which a lot of standard carriers do. Is what we call an all-risk policy. That policy basically says that your home's covered for really anything that happens to it suddenly and accidentally, except those things that are specifically excluded. So
I got you.
That makes sense. I know last year before, that I got into one. This is just one of those insurance things that I wonder about, because I know the house was next to a storm drain. Well, when the hail came, it blocked the storm drain. So then the house flooded. They didn't have flood insurance. So what you're saying, that the whatever you're just referred to, that would cover that unless it specifically says no flooding.
That's right. So, in your common exclusion is when we talk about flood under homeowners insurance, that is an exclusion, but you're talking about a true active flood. Water inundation around the house that comes in from the surface level. A lot of times we see, as you mentioned, with a hailstorm, or, any storm that drops a ton of water in an area, we can sometimes see drain lines get overwhelmed or clogged up. And if it backs up through that, some homeowners policy they will cover that loss. Some do not. It's what we call water backup of sewer and drain. Most homeowners policies come with that specific type of loss excluded.
Gotcha.
It's a buyback into the policy. So most policies that we do that, or that we work with, have some type of sub limit. You can usually buy it back in increments of $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, and it'll cover those events where it backs up and damages a bathroom or kitchen or finished basement, something like that. And then flood insurance, obviously, true acts of flood is a different policy altogether.
It'd be something you would add on to.
That's right.
A basic policy.
Yeah. So if you were to look at being ready for storm season in terms of insurance. If you really wanted to be buttoned up, anyone obviously that's close to a body of water needs flood insurance, whether it's a creek, river, lake, pond, whatever it may be. They need a separate flood policy for that. And they also need that water backup clause into the policy. And they also want to make sure, as we talked about, being on that more liberal Homeowners 5 form. That's the all-risk form. The other form that's out there that a lot of people still have is a Homeowners 3. There's nothing really wrong with this form, except the limitations come to being what we call a named peril policy, especially on personal property, where it's a good policy. It says, okay, we'll cover your home for these things, and it has a comprehensive list of perils. Things like hail, wind, fire are all included into that. But the issue comes on the contents, where most of the time that policy requires, for the contents in the home to be covered, to have a hole or opening created in the outside of the policy on that form versus a Homeowners 5. The issue you have there is you get into a wind-driven rain and you have water that comes into the home. The roof's not necessarily damaged. It's just had some water in. None of your interior contents are covered under that form. So, I think it's a discussion that people need to have with their agents. For the primary home, though, hail, wind, fire, tree down on the property are all covered losses. Mm-hmm. But you can liberalize that up to make sure you're buttoned up and add things like flood insurance to the policy.
Interesting. We're talking insurance, or for some it's insurance. Insurance or insurance.
We had to talk over the break whether it's insurance, which is what I say, or go ahead and say how you say it.
Insurance?
So, yeah, call us and tell us how you pronounce this word.
It was funny. I was doing, I had one client of mine who, I was like, so what's it like down here? You like it down here? And he's, yeah. What's the biggest difference? They were like moving here from Michigan or something. I said, what's the biggest difference that you've noticed already? And the buyer was like, they call it insurance down here.
That's the biggest difference.
It was somehow, for some reason, it was sticking to him.
It was bothering him.
Yeah. Well, we are talking about that topic and how we can protect our homes from the acts of God, if you will. I guess it's a popular term people think about when it comes to this topic that can happen to your home, like thunderstorms, high winds, lightning, and of course, what we have pictured in our RIC Home Inspections photo from the field.
RIC Home Inspections photo from the field.
What are you looking at? I know what I'm doing.
Did you see that?
Yeah, it's on Facebook, on our Facebook page, at Home Pros Radio. Over there, pull it up. What did you guys see? If you make sure you're following us on Facebook so you can get these photos every week. It's a really good photo of hail damage.
Yeah, that's pretty. That's an obvious one there.
Pretty classic, right there.
Mm-hmm. First thing I thought of when I got up on the roof and saw that,
what?
It was all hail.
I knew there was one coming. I was just waiting.
All right, so Tim's over there just shaking his head. Tim
Briles,
what
have I got into today?
With the Briles Company. Real quick, I want to talk briefly about that because I feel like it tends to be blown out of proportion at times.
It does. I mean, it's in terms of homeowners insurance claims, it's one of the highest paid out losses because it's the most widespread, and it's not uncommon for homes in our area to get hit by hail. We've been in a pretty good cycle of seeing hailstorms come through consistently once a year, maybe twice a year. But it's definitely a covered loss, whether you're on a homeowners 3 form to the exterior or the homeowners 5. It's a covered loss, and depending on most policies will obviously cover that damage and pay to replace that roof with one of current kind and quality at today's price. Mm-hmm. So you have someone like Shane, a group of contractors that come in, they're going to replace it with brand new shingles without depreciating for age, wear and tear, that type of thing. There are some policies out there that will knock you a little bit for the wear and tear on the roof. They'll depreciate the value, but it's rare. So, but it's definitely a covered loss. I think from our perspective, a couple things to hit on there is, number one, don't panic. Hailstorm comes, your home's not going to, most hail damage does not cause leaks to a property, at least not immediately. It's something that you may see 3 or 4 months down the road as those shingles that are compromised by that hail hit start to wear out, where they pit where that hail hit pits. I tell people when they get into a hail, and this kind of leads into some other things about, that we may talk about, but don't just go out and get any roofer out there to replace the roof. be cautious about how you do it. And
especially if that person is coming after a hailstorm.
That's
and
right.
All of a sudden the truck shows up.
That's right. Your fly-by-nighters. We've had plenty of unfortunate nightmare stories from our policyholders that kind of rushed in, and even if we try to encourage them to take their time, you want to choose someone local. Don't rush into a decision on a roof. Get a couple bids. Make sure it's someone that you vetted. We actually had a client that got hit by a fly-by-night roofer. They put a flyer on the door. They'll even put flyers on the door saying, "Hey, I did a courtesy inspection to your roof while you're at work. Give me a call. You got hail damage." And this happened to one of ours, and they agreed to cut a check. And that's another thing. Do not ever cut a check in full until the work is done.
We've talked about that on the show.
Mm-hmm. And so, they claimed to replace the roof, and the roof was a black shingled roof, and they took some spray paint up there and spray painted the roof. And that guy was gone, and
was the money.
My policyholder, that's right. My policyholder was left without a new roof and with a still hail damaged, compromised roof, and asked me if there was anything our insurance company could come back and do. And unfortunately, there's nothing that they can do at that point. They've already paid that loss.
Right.
So be really cautious about that. Not also tell you too. I mean, it's not. I usually try to tell my policyholders you want to pay your deductible as few times as possible on a hail damage claim or weather related claim. If the roof is not leaking, don't rush in to replace the roof because you're still right in the middle of storm season. There is a probability you'll have a second hailstorm that comes along. Mm-hmm. So if you have $1,000, $2,500 deductible, or some homes $5,000 deductible, don't go and replace the roof only to potentially have it 2 months later. You got to pay that deductible again for another new roof. So usually you're not going to have a leaking problem. If you're worried about leaking, you're allowed to mitigate that, tarp the roof, have someone come up there and do some temp repairs, but don't rush into a decision. Choose someone local, take your time on your contractors, and maybe wait until, late September, October to start thinking about getting that roof replaced. But
still don't hesitate to call your agent and go, I'm concerned.
Yeah, I think,
and reach out.
Yeah, I think if you're in a hail event or wind event, I mean, definitely let your agent know. Your agent's one of the first people that you want to call. It's usually good to have that conversation with them. You can call your insurance carrier directly, but some people get frustrated waiting, trying to get through 10 prompts on the phone, getting to someone that they can talk to. But I usually always encourage the policyholder to call us first. We'll talk about it. You can always get an inspection done on the roof. And, the insurance companies aren't out to stick you. Sometimes, they'll get out there, they inspect the roof, they agree to pay for all the damages. 2 months later down the road, because of the conditions of, there's a widespread damage, prices are escalating. They will make those price adjustments as you go. So the only thing you should ever come out of pocket is your deductible. So the best way to avoid that, don't go with those fly-by-night guys that come into the area. Get your insurance company on the hook early so that they can do those inspections, and you can team up with them and continue to coordinate with them throughout that process, and your agent. So there's some of the best things you can do. And then obviously, too, if you worry, just make sure you mitigate out your damages. Do temp repairs if you need to.
Something to just hold things off until something can be
hold it off. That's right. Be patient more than anything.
Yeah, it's not like the hail damage is going to go away and the claim's going to go away.
That's right.
It's still going to be there. It's going to be obvious.
Whether you and let's talk about that, because the people are worried that if they don't report it, and you can I always encourage trying to report the claim early, but if you don't, the statute of limitations on most homeowners insurance policies is either 12 months or 24 months. So you can still report that claim 10 months after the fact and still cover loss.
Right.
It's not a problem.
Oh, okay.
So don't. Like I said, you don't have to worry about that time frame.
And I think that's one of the things. I think people are like, oh, everybody else is getting a new roof. I need to go ahead and do it now, and not just sit back and, it's
right.
It's okay. The shingles aren't going to run out that quick.
That's right. And you're probably not going to have a leak, and you're probably going to be fine. So.
Sorry, we can't roll out. No more shingles left.
That's right. No more.
They do get a shortage every now and then, but hopefully, if you wait that 10 months, they should have some more by then.
This episode of the Home Pros Radio Show podcast is sponsored by HomeBinder. There is no better way to organize paint colors and home documents, get maintenance reminders, receive email alerts of appliance recalls, and share valuable information about your home with potential buyers. For a limited time, use promo code HomeProsRadio. all one word, to upgrade to our premium edition for the life of your ownership. Visit us online at homebinder.com or simply click on the link provided in the show description of this podcast. HomeBinder, a homeowner's best friend.
Well, earlier we were talking about the differences between Homeowners 3 versus Homeowners 5, two different types of policies. Yeah. Without getting into the nitty-gritty details, are there certain things that should stand out for someone who's kind of just looking at the differences?
Looking at it at face value, the average consumer is just going to kind of get frustrated looking at that policy. I think that's a discussion they have with the agent. But the biggest thing I would tell you is there are limits. I can't think of the last time I've really sold a true Homeowners 3 policy just because the Homeowners 5 is so much broader in its policy language. Sublimits in the policy are better. The way that it treats the home, any other structures on the property, your personal property with that all risk coverage is it's just a better product. You don't run into limitations of, okay, if it's not named for this peril, it's not covered. Mm-hmm. You run that risk on the Homeowners 3 form. That's really the biggest difference.
So at the very least, if you're looking at, it's just like anything else in a normal market. All items aren't created equal.
That's
so
right.
if you're getting bids, if you're getting quotes on insurance, make sure you're comparing apples to apples at the very least.
Correct.
Right?
I can put down a quote. I can put down quotes among, even with the carriers that we work with. I could put down a quote to you that are a couple $100, $300, $400 apart, right, from the same insurance carrier, and that's because that carrier works with both forms. And that to me, the quote, face value, what you get from the agent, or, if you don't discuss that in depth, they look almost identical. Mm. If anything, they do look identical, other than a price difference. Mm-hmm. So it's what lies behind all those figures that you see and on that quote worksheet that make the difference in the policy. So it's something that you need to look hard at.
Yeah, so the consumer really needs to get in and talk to the agent.
That's right.
That's what it really boils down to, is have that conversation.
That's what the agent's there for.
And that was Tim Briles with the Briles Company Insurance. For more on how you can protect your home from the issues we discussed, you can find the Briles Company online at brilesco.com. That's brilesco.com. You can also reach Tim and his staff by phone at 864-236-0800. A simple phone call can be that first step you take toward protecting the time and money that you have invested in your home. Well, we appreciate the investment you've made in joining us on the Home Pros Radio Show podcast. We have more advice, tips, and tricks heading your way in future episodes of our program, and we hope you join us again. Please feel free to subscribe to our podcast to keep updated as each episode is released, and we also invite you to share our podcast with friends and family who could also take advantage of the information we share each week on the show. For my co-host Shane Hips with Closing Contractor, I'm Tommy Donovan with RIC Home Inspections, and we look forward to being with you next time on the Home Pros Radio Show podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Home Pros Radio Show. If you have a question for the Home Pros, visit us online at homeprosradio.com, where you can contact us directly and also learn more about the topics and guests we bring to you each week. It's the Home Pros Radio Show online at homeprosradio.com or on the radio at 94.5 WGTK, The Answer.